Hi, everybody, and welcome to our session. So today we'll talk about link storages. So we really want to have a more like a deep dive and explain more about link storages, what they are, and how you can use them. We did have a lot of questions from customers about this functionality, so we do want to cover a lot about it. But of course, if you have any questions afterwards, if you have any concerns, then you can also reach out and we can cover that separately. Now, the agenda is very straightforward, so we want to just briefly go through link storages, what they mean and how they are being used. Then we'll go into MyRapidi, and I will show you how the link storage looks like what you can do in there, how you can use it on transfers. So mainly, all the things that you can do with link storages. Then we have, any questions. If you need to ask anything, that has to do with link storages, go ahead and use the chat and post your question. Then I will show you which are the upcoming sessions. And then last but not least, resources, where we add the general resources and also the resources specific for this session. So then you will see their articles that are actually explaining the link storages and how to set them up. So, more details in case you need to go through that. Now, let's go briefly, I would say, through this part, because we do want to make sure that everyone understands what a link storage is. So a link storage is actually a built-in functionality that Rapidi has, and it is able to store and retrieve the system key pairs, right? Like the primary keys that systems have. So it's like a dynamic lookup table that you can use so that you can save within Rapidi all the primary keys that belong to those records, right? As we know, in every system, there's a primary key set up for everything, right? Let's say for customers in an ERP system, you would have the customer number. That would be a primary key because that's always unique. Then, for example, in a CRM system, then you would also have a primary key. So that's also unique, but of course it has a different format, a different structure, and that's something that's specific to that system. So they're always unique, and then you can identify your records via those IDs. Now, with the link storage, you can actually store that information in there, and then you would have access to it and see that one-to-one relationship. So if you have one customer in your ERP, then you would see the ERP customer number, and then next to it, you would see the CRM customer ID. So then you will be able to see that specific customer and how it is being identified in both systems. And of course, when it comes to link storages, there is a specific process, so to speak. So you will need to set them up. You just have to go through the steps. I will show you in a few seconds. The idea is that before you actually go into link storages, make sure that you have your connection set up, right? That you have connected your systems and that you have tested them and that you have read design. The idea is that the link storages can be used in multiple ways. The most common one is at runtime. So when the transfer runs, then the link storage will be updated with those specific primary keys that you have defined. So this is the most common use case, I would say. And of course, it works in both directions. So it doesn't really matter what, which system you're using. You can set up the link storage and store the information that you need. And obviously, if your, let's say, the table link, the key fields on your transfer, so that section there is left blank or is disabled, then Rapidi will use the link storage to actually create and update records. So I will go through that in a few seconds. Now, another important aspect here is that you have the LS Lookup formula. We also have it on our wiki. So this is a formula that will allow you to retrieve the link storage values in other transfers. So this is a really good way to retrieve the data that you need so that you can actually send your data to the destination system. And it's definitely faster, right? Because then it will query your own link storage instead of performing a query on the source system or the destination system. And whenever you have link storages on transfers, then Rapidi will actually show you a log with everything that has been read, checked, updated, and added, right? So then you will be able to have that information available there as well. So this was, an introduction to this part. I will go into Rapidi because we definitely want to explain this a bit more. Okay, so then when you log into your service, then you will have here the link storages section, right? So you can have 1, 2, 20, 50 link storages here. It depends, how you want to use them. Now, on this page, for example, I have multiple entries, right? So I will show you a few examples and then we can set it up. We can set up a new link storage so you can see how you can add the information. For example, here I have one that's being set up. So in this case, I wanted to have a link storage to actually store the currency codes. So as we know, like there are systems where you have the currency code, which has this format, like the usual format. And then there are systems where the currency code would have an ID associated with it. So in my case, what I wanted to have here is to see, okay, for this specific currency code, which is the ID from the destination system that this corresponds to. So then if I expand this part here, you will be able to see what I have used to actually retrieve this information. So if I expand this part here, you would see this is my connection, right? And then this is the table that I'm actually reading from. And then this is the field that I want to use. So it's always connection, table, and the field. And then on the right, you would have also the destination system, then it would be connection. Then you have the table name, and then you have the field. So then if you were to use this link storage on a transfer, right, on your transfer, then this would be updated, right? So if you are syncing currencies, right, if you want to do that for a specific integration, then you would be using this one. And then if there's a new currency code, that would be added to the list here. So this is, I would say, a simple one. And then, for example, when it comes to customers, which is very common and it's being used by a lot of companies. So here you can define a link storage so that you can retrieve and save here all the customer IDs, right? So in this case, I have my connection, which is Business Central. I have the table, and then I have the link field here, which is actually the primary key for that specific table. And then on the right, I have Salesforce because I want this to also be saved here. So I have the account and then the ID. And then when you scroll down, you would see this one-to-one relationship. So this ERP customer number is actually this Salesforce account. So this is a one-to-one match that you would see in the link storage. Now, if we look at it, then you have several things in here. So let me close this one a bit. So at the list level, you have different options. Option one is to add a new value. So if you click on it, you can add a specific value if you want to. But of course, as I mentioned before, usually the link storage is added on the transfer, and then when the transfer runs, then this list is updated. So there's no manual process actually, right? So it's it's automatically updated. But in case you want to do that, to add anything, you can do that here. Then you have the option to delete all. So if you want to delete everything from your link storage, you can go ahead and do that. But of course, you have to be careful, right? Because if you need this record later on, then it will be difficult to get them back. But in case you want to clean up, you can definitely use it. Then here you have export JSON. So this one will export this list that you have here, and it will be downloaded on your computer. So for example, if you have a very long list in here, and then you want to upload the list into a different link storage, let's say on a different service, you can use this functionality. First, you export the list, and then you go to the other link storage, and then you import. So you browse, get the file, and then you import that. So when you import the JSON into a link storage, it will automatically create all the entries. So if you have 100, 300, then it will do that for you instead of trying to manually add the values in there. So that's something that you can definitely do with link storages. Then here at the entry level, you have actions. So this is edit. So if you want to edit this one, then you'll go into edit mode and you can change things here if you want to. If you want to delete a particular entry, you can do that. You can click on this icon here and then the entry will be deleted. And then another thing I wanted to show you, for example, I think this is very interesting though. So when you set up a link storage, you also have the possibility to use multiple keys in here. So you are not limited to just one and say, oh, I can only add the customer number, right, as a primary key and that's it. No, you can have a combination of keys that you can add. Like in this case, I have this table, and then for this table, I want to retrieve the document type and the number, the document number. And then if you look here, you'll see that the data is saved like this. So it will show the first one, which is the document type, so the value, its order, and then dash, they're always separated by dash. And then after the dash, you would have the document number. So if you have multiple keys used on the link storage, they will always be separated by a dash so that they're shown, correctly here on this list. So if you need this type of link storage, you can definitely add it. Like for example, here, if you go to edit, you can definitely add more and you can put a third if you want to, or a fourth if that's really necessary. And then when the transfer runs, it will populate, all the entries with all the information that you have available in these fields. So this is really good because sometimes you might need more than one key in here. So you can definitely do that. Now, if you were to go ahead and create a link storage, then you just go to new here. And then you have to give it a code. So something that makes sense. I don't know, let's say we say accounts D, for example. And here you can add a description. So something that, tells you what this is about. I can say BC customer number, for example. And then on the right, you would add the description for the other system, right? The destination. So you can say Salesforce account ID. Then we have to create this one, right? So I got this created, and now you'll see here the code and then the descriptions that we added. Now, the second step is to go ahead and select the connection, right? Because it needs to point to a specific connection. In my case, I would say, okay, I'm going to pick this one. So as you can see here under connections, you have this drop down, so you can go through all of them, like the ones that you have. And then here I can use customer card, for example. You can use anything. So it can be, any table that you want to use. And then here I would put number, right? So you can search for your specific field and then add it here. And then I'll say create. So this part is done. Now I have to go to the right side. And here, again, you have the same drop down. So you go through your setup. Let me see. If I say account, then I should see this one here. And then ID, account ID. So then we click on create. And then we have our link storage created, right? So if we do that and then we expand it. So right now this one is empty because there's nothing in here. But then as soon as you add it on the transfer and the transfer runs, then this will be populated and then you can have like, multiple pages for the specific link storage. So this is how you actually create the link storage. Now, what I wanted to show you here. So for example, this is my customer link storage. So this is something I'm using on a transfer, right? So this is my transfer here. And if I expand the general section, you can see the link storage here, right? So when you edit the transfer on the general section, then you have access to all the link storages that you have set up. So it's just a matter of selecting the one that's needed for this transfer. Now, because I'm using link storage, then I don't have anything here as the key fields because I want this transfer to rely on the link storages. So if if I want to transfer a customer, right, from my ERP to Salesforce, I want Rapidi to check the link storage, see if that customer exists. If not, create it. If it does exist, then just update it. So this is the combination when it comes to link storages. So if you have link storages on a transfer, you can disable the key fields and rely on link storages only. Then another option you can enable key fields and use primary keys or external IDs, right, as the key fields, and still use the link storage because the link storage will be updated anyway. The only difference is that when you have the key fields enabled, then the transfer will rely on what you have defined here, meaning this field from the source and then this field from the destination. So it will not rely on the link storage to see, is this customer there? Like, do I need to add it or not? So it will rely on what you have set up in here. So whenever you want to store any type of information, you can use the link storage, right? And then that will be automatically updated every time the transfer runs. But a really good way to set up the transfer is to just disable this part, rely on link storages, and then you would see there the full list of customers, contacts, anything you have. And then you will be able to identify all records, right? Like, what's the customer number for this customer in MyRapidi and then the account ID in Salesforce, for example. So in this case, so I've decided to put it like this. I will activate changes, and then I'm going to run this transfer because I want to see how that goes. So like, for example, I want to send a new customer. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so in here, I sent a new customer, right? And then I would get this information. So here it would say 1 record added, right? And then as you can see here, the link storage statistics. What this means, it says, okay, this is your link storage, and this is what happened. So here you have get, checked, updated, added, deleted. So it added 1 because this customer did not exist before in the link storage. So now if we go back to our link storage, or this one here, then this is my customer. This is the one that I had and I sent over to Salesforce. So now I have a new entry here for this ERP customer number, which has this Salesforce account ID. So this is how you would identify them. But here on the transfer, right? So the transfer, as I mentioned, relies on this one, on the link storage. And then if you run it again, then it will not create an entry for the same customer because the customer already exists in your link storage. So this is a really good way to understand what's happening when you actually run it. So for example, if you're running the transfer and the customer exists in the link storage, then it will say here updated 1 because the customer was found in the link storage, and then it just updated the customer, right? Like if there's something to be updated. And then if you have new customers, let's say if you have customers created like 10, 15, then you would see the specific number here. So it's easy for you to see the statistics for link storages, what happened and what has been created. And then of course, this one will be updated every time the transfer runs. And then if you have a very long list and it's difficult to go through that, you can use this filter here. And then if you say, okay, just give me this customer number, then as soon as you start typing, it will show you some results, right? So then if you have like 500 customers in here, then you can just use the search section, start typing in, and then you will see the customer that you are looking for. And then the same thing happens for this part. You can also use the search section to actually look for a specific Salesforce account ID, right? Because sometimes you want to see, I have the Salesforce account ID, and then, okay, which is the ERP customer number for it. So you just add it here, and then the link storage will give you that specific entry in there. So that's a very, a good way to keep track of all your customers. Yeah, and I think that's mainly it. Like I said, if you want to rely on link storage only, then you don't need to use key fields. Just rely on what you have set up here. If you still want to rely on key fields, then you enable them, right? And you can still allow the link storage to be here because it will still populate that link storage with the customer numbers or contacts, invoices, whatever you have in there. Of course, as you know, as a note, when it comes to key fields, if you're using external IDs, make sure that they are both unique and marked as external IDs, right? So they both have to be set up like that. Otherwise, you can, run into that situation where you create duplicates in the destination system. So just, a reminder for that type of setup. Now let's go back to our presentation. So we went through that. Let me see if we have any questions here. No questions. Okay, so then when it comes to next session, so we have here the main page. So you can go ahead and, register for any sessions that you need. If you cannot attend the session, then don't worry because you will get everything via email. So you can rewatch the session and then, ask any questions if necessary. Here we have complete season 1 schedule, and then the next session would be about scheduling. We'll go through that part and explain, best practices, how it needs to be done, and how to deal with schedules in general in Rapidi. This would be the complete schedule for this one. And of course, if you have any ideas, anything, you can definitely reach out. Then we have our feedback form. Feel free to write any comments, anything that you want to share with us, any ideas, you can definitely do that. Resources, so we have our wiki where you can find all the documentation that we have right now. Support, in case you need support and need to reach out, feel free to do that. Then we have product updates, which are really great. So you can subscribe so you get everything into your inbox and then read about new things that we are working on or maybe any updates. And then we have the product release notes where we actually document all releases and what we have done during that specific release, any fixes, improvements, any new feature functionality. So everything that has to do with Rapidi. And of course, if you have any questions about any of them, you can always ask us and we'll do our best to answer. And then the specific resources for this session, we have quite a lot. So we do have several articles with regards to link storages. So how to set up link storages, how to deal with the values that you have in there, how to delete if necessary, then how to use it on a transfer, what I showed you before. And that's really, I think that's a great combination to use it on a transfer so that you can rely on what's being stored in there. How to create link storages, so from scratch, adding all the information there and then adding it on a transfer, and import and export. So you can always export the link storage values and then import them into a different one if you want to. So that's also something that happens and it's quite common. Or maybe you want to, copy the values from a link storage that's on, a service, and you want to put that into a different one. So you can always play around with that, but it's important to make sure that you export everything and then go to the other link storage and import them. You have all the instructions there in case you need to go through that. And I think that was it for our session today. Thank you for listening, for watching. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We will be happy to help. In the meantime, then stay tuned and we will meet again next week when we have our next session. Have a great day.